There's a phrase that gets repeated endlessly in spiritual spaces: unconditional love. It's wrapped in words like Christ consciousness, divine love, love and light, oneness. We're told spiritual maturity means loving everyone without limits. And it sounds beautiful. But when you bring it into real human relationships, something starts to feel off. A lot of unconditional love talk is abstract to the point of being useless. It sounds holy, but it completely skips the lived reality of being human in relationship. Real relationships have nervous systems, boundaries, power dynamics, history, trauma, needs, repair, consequences. Love doesn't float above all that. It moves through it. This is where so many people quietly get stuck. They're handed a spiritual ideal that feels elevated, but they're left without a map for how to live it inside real conversations, real conflict, real disappointment, and real harm. When love is treated as something that exists above the body, above emotion, above consequence, people are taught to override their instincts instead of listening to them. What you're pointing at is the gap between spiritual ideals and relational truth. This gap matters because when ideals aren't grounded in truth, they stop serving growth and start creating confusion. People sense the disconnect, but they're often told that the discomfort means they're not evolved enough yet. In reality, their system is responding accurately to something that doesn't quite add up. Most books and teachings on unconditional love don't meet people where they actually are. They speak to an ideal state of consciousness, but skip the developmental reality of being human. The truth is, the majority of humanity is still learning basic emotional regulation, boundaries, communication, and repair. Telling people to practice unconditional love without first giving them tools for everyday relationships doesn't liberate them. It overwhelms them. These concepts aren't wrong, but without grounding, they don't help people navigate real conversations, real conflict, and real harm. They often leave people feeling like they're failing at love, when in reality they were never given a workable map. Unconditional love, as it's often taught, gets flattened into accept everything, tolerate everything, stay open no matter what. But that's not love. That's dissociation dressed up as enlightenment. It ignores that humans are not gods playing a game of perfection. We're embodied beings learning through friction. Friction is not a failure of love. It's how love becomes real. Relationships exist where difference exists, where boundaries are tested, where repair is needed. When spirituality teaches people to bypass that friction instead of work with it, it disconnects them from their own humanity. There are layers of love. There's basic human regard, there's compassion, there's intimacy, there's trust, there's commitment, there's earned access. Pretending those layers don't exist actually makes relationships unsafe, not sacred. Not everyone deserves the same level of access to your inner world. Not every relationship is meant to hold the same depth. When these distinctions aren't taught, people are left thinking that discernment equals judgment and boundaries equal failure. In reality, discernment is what allows love to remain clean instead of resentful. And you're right, we are not here to love people at the expense of ourselves. Boundaries are not a failure of love. They're a condition for real love. Without boundaries, there's no relationship, just absorption or self-abandonment. Love that requires you to disappear is not love, it's survival. When boundaries are missing, people don't become more loving, they become more depleted. Healthy love preserves the self while connecting to the other. It does not demand sacrifice as proof of virtue. A lot of spiritual teachers jump straight to Christ consciousness without teaching emotional regulation, conflict repair, self-respect, or discernment. So people try to imitate divine love while their human systems are still wounded, and it turns into bypassing, tolerance of abuse, or spiritualized people-pleasing. This is how spirituality becomes unsafe. Not because love is wrong, but because it's taught without the tools required to embody it. Without emotional skills, people confuse passivity with peace and endurance with wisdom. If love were truly divine, it would be intelligent. It would be protective. It would know when to say no. Even in the Christ story, love wasn't passive. There were boundaries. There were withdrawals. There were confrontations. There was discernment about who had access. Love that never says no is not holy. It's incoherent. True love responds to reality. It adapts. It protects life. It does not confuse infinite compassion with infinite availability. So yeah, the problem isn't the idea of unconditional love. It's the way it's taught without embodiment, without tools, without relational maturity. Unconditional love, when grounded, doesn't mean unconditional access. It means holding compassion without abandoning discernment. It means caring without collapsing boundaries. It means staying human while remaining open-hearted. This is the conversation that's missing in so many spiritual spaces. And it's why so many people feel inspired by spiritual teachings, yet quietly overwhelmed in their actual relationships. Love doesn't need to be less sacred. It needs to be more honest. If you're craving a more grounded, honest approach to unconditional love, I wrote a book exactly about that. Mastering the Art of Unconditional Love is a practical guide to loving without losing yourself. Link is in the description. And if you want more conversations like this, make sure to like and subscribe.